All right. So kind of the deal here, and I'm going here a little bit and not having chit chat because I got to get going in an hour or so. So I want to give us enough time to talk about the things we need to talk about. Um, so I got questions for you. We'll go for about 40 minutes or so, and
Yep.
then after that, if you've got any questions for me, then you can ask those, and we'll try and be done, like I said, in about an hour or so. So, you good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay, so we're gonna start with just some kind of practical ministry type stuff. If that's all right.
Yep.
I want to hear from you a little bit, just from your point of view, from your mouth. Um, Again, what kind of restate what ministry have you been involved with? What does it look like, I guess, for you to be involved with youth ministry and worship ministry? And just briefly, if you can, talk about what it looked like for you to lead those ministries, develop those ministries, train people in those ministries. Yeah, just kind of go with that a little bit, and we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, I'll see if I can answer
That's
all
that
those. I'll probably forget to go through. So
that that's a big ask, so don't feel bad.
okay. So as for youth ministry wise, I was always involved whenever I was in youth ministry. When I was in high school, junior high and high school, I was always involved, trying to do anything that I can to help out in any such way or whatnot. My youth minister was always my mentor, and so he always helped me, and I always wanted to have that same impact for other people as well, that I can be able to be as helpful as he was, um, and just for God to be able to use me in such ways of any kind of ministry at all. And then 2012, I got a call from a church and like, hey, we want you to be our youth minister. So I took that position. Um, and I built a really good set of relationships with the students during those 4 years that I was there. Um, and in those relationships, to be able to just help them grow in life, and especially their relationship with God, but particularly for life in that particular case. Just going through the dealings of being a teenager and not knowing what in the world to do or how to really um, like how to live in a way that's good for them, but also in a way that's going to be growing in a relationship with God. Especially with the questions that they have of like who is God. So that was just a really good set of time to really just delve into those types of conversations is during that age, is to just have really good relationship based conversations. The trust that builds up within that, to be able to disciple in those ways, and for incorporating their service within the churches, whatever that we can. So I helped them to where they preached a few times during that time frame, under leadership of the other preacher as well. We helped them be able to really think about what they're saying and what they're learning, and be able to delve into um, the exegesis of the scriptures, of understanding scriptures, interpreting. Um, so that particular time frame was a really good thing, a really good learning experience for me as well. Just be able to, what is it that they are really needing from me in this particular case. So good relationship with them, to where I still have a relationship with them even after 10 years. Um, one of them is a worship minister now down in Tulsa, Tulsa, Oklahoma, with his wife, and that's beautiful. One of them is in Colorado, um, and another one is in Nebraska. Um, the other guys are still in Parsons, Kansas. That's where my youth ministry was. But so far, everyone's still doing good. I try to keep tabs with them as much as I can.
Sure.
And I did that ministry for 4 years. It was very straining on my ability for having the amount of time available to actually do it, on top of all the other responsibilities I put myself in at the time of school and a growing family and my other full-time job. Um, since we lived an hour away from the ministry, it just became a lot harder. So we had to step down from it. And a
Nice.
friend of mine actually ended up taking that position. So I knew it was in good hands during the time. Um, I had a really good relationship with the preacher. Him and I just really had good chemistry to be able to converse with each other and just laugh with each other. And we knew each other's um, personality when it came to humor, so that helped a lot. Um, and both of us were able to help each other when it came to the ministry of the congregation, not just the youth ministry, but for the congregation itself. So that was also very helpful. Be able to get to know everyone and be able to help everyone that we could. Him and I, we did the we went over to the senior housing once a month, and so he shared the word, and I played some music uh, for those who couldn't leave that housing. So we were able to provide a church service in that way, directly where they are, which was fantastic. I loved it. Kind of miss doing that actually. Um, let's see. That goes into worship leading. It's like I did that in Parsons. Was their worship leader as well. Um, and that was just incorporating whoever had the talents that they were willing to use. And one of the students of mine, he was our drummer. He didn't know how to play drums, but incorporating him nonetheless was able to help him practice a lot more for him to be able to keep on growing that talent, for him to be able to keep on growing with that. So that was very helpful when it came to the worship ministry as well. Same thing with the student that's worship leading now. He wasn't a guitarist, and then he became a guitarist, and I played with him throughout those 4 years and helped him grow in those ways. Um, let's see. I provided multiple events for not just the youth ministry. Multiple events for the youth ministry, but also multiple events for the congregation itself. So we try to make some family parties that we can have all the families involved, for kids to full grown seniors, and try to get more of the community invited as well. Um, so in that particular sense, that was more of the uh, family ministry, if you want to call it that, for that particular church. That's exactly what it was. Um, and so since I stepped down from that point, we went to Blenville Christian Church and here in Joplin. We've been going there for the past 6 years now. We took about a month. So the first 4 weeks was just getting to know people and be able to get to know the ministries and whatnot. And from that point on, we started helping. My wife and I started helping out with the youth ministry and worship leader and worship ministry. And we did that for, let's see, 3 years. And then COVID happened. And after COVID, or during COVID and after COVID, our youth ministry null and void. We don't have any kids. We have children's ministry, but that's very much well taken care of by the older ladies that's been doing it for older than I've been alive. Um, so I have not been helping out when it came to the youth ministry for the past 3 years, because we don't have a youth ministry. But I've been regularly been interim worship leader in between those worship leaders that have been hired on and then leave, and then I take care of the helm until somebody else comes in play. I've been heavily involved within all the leaderships. I'm also the search team committee and the outreach and um, the hiring process for the next worship leader as well. Um, I've built many relationships in these past 6 years here at Blinville, and most all of them don't want us to leave. So I mean that's a good sign for relationships, but like they're also like, we understand you want to leave, but we want you to stay. So but so they also know that we would be good wherever we are gonna wherever God wants us to be. So we have built some really good relationships there throughout the past few years. um I'm trying to think, was
Yeah. So talk a little bit, if you can, about working with other volunteers. So within whatever the ministry environment is, whether it be youth ministry or worship, working with other volunteers. So on a kind of leadership level within those ministries, how do you handle training, equipping, worship ministry side? I lead worship here every week, and so I kind of understand a little bit of what goes into it. How do you line out, what key do we play in, and what key matches the congregation, and when maybe a musician struggles with a piece of music, or a singer is struggling with finding harmonies or whatever. you know Kind of talk through what it looks like for you as a leader working with other volunteers, you know
yeah,
underneath of you, essentially.
yeah. For worship ministry in particular, it's like I first want to make sure to actually have a good communication with them. So I always try to have a some sort of sit down at a coffee place or Waffle House or something. Just be able to have a one-on-one conversation with them, just be able to get to know them and for them to get to know me. And I try to do that as at least once a year. Try to at least. My lifestyle has made it a lot difficult to be able to do that personally. So um, let's see. When it comes to having them or equipping them, uh, my one of my favorite things to do is have people who think they can't do it. And for most people, or for most onlookers, they probably would think that this person wouldn't be able to do it. But I always want to help encourage them and help them keep on growing. So I always jam out with them as many times as I can. Just be able for us to have a good understanding of their strengths and be able to work on those things and be able to build up on their weaknesses when it comes to their musical ability.
Yeah.
Um, and so I used to always play with people that didn't know how to play and be able to incorporate them still nonetheless. When it comes to finding keys, that is depending on who I want singing. So I want to make sure that their voice is going to be as not just easy for them, but also like proclaiming for them to be able to enjoy it without struggling.
Sure.
So I want to make sure that whatever key of the song is going to be appropriate for the singer itself. While there is always the debate amongst worship leading to have keys available for the congregation, I'm a firm believer that whoever is leading the song is to also have is for the song to be appropriate for their voice. So when I choose keys, that's how I choose it, is depending on whoever's leading. And then of course, if there's needing to be transposition, depending on the instruments, then of course I'll have those laid out as well. So I'm actually playing with another guitarist, a friend of mine for the past few years. He consistently struggles with the chords of F and B flat. So I will make sure to have a capo transition or transposition available for him in whatever key that we're playing, to have it on a different key for him to play on a capo. So I always have that regularly available. Um, and if we decide to change the key on the spot, I'm always ready to change the key on the spot. It's like um, whatever's way is going to be best for the person's voice.
Sure.
I forgot what else you asked.
Yeah. So now transition it over to youth ministry a little bit. What's it like working with you as the primary youth leader, youth minister, as a volunteer? what does that look like?
Okay, so leadership and volunteer for volunteers, definitely the same way of be able to have the sit down with them, be able to get to know them, and be able to discuss the clarity of what I would expect of them, be able
Yeah.
to help them understand that, and be able to have them understand how to do it. Um, so a lot of those are going to be very much situational, depending on the person, because one person is going to be a lot more analytical, and the other person is going to be a lot more emotional. I mean, not in a bad way, of course, but so be able to understand the person's strengths and weaknesses, and be able to utilize them both, and be able to. I wouldn't say weaknesses either. It's not, but yeah, I think you might understand what I'm trying to say. Just
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
utilize their personality in whatever possible way that they can.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, clarity within the what I'm trying to lead is where the biggest thing comes into play, is making sure that if my communication is unclear, I want to make sure that they can come to me and be able to ask for the clarification. I
Yeah.
want to make sure that they can always come to me and be able to talk about whatever. It's like the ministry is very much related to the children, yes, children and families involved, but I also want to make sure that I can be good leadership and good steward to the volunteers as well.
Mhm. Sure. Okay. Good. Good. Thanks for sharing that. Want to transition maybe a little bit to kind of personal uh, questions, kind of about how you live your life and whatnot. So let's start with, I guess, personal kind of organization. So imagine you're in a full-time ministry position, kind of 8 to 5. Well, not necessarily 8 to 5, but expected 40-ish hours a week, fulfilling that
Right.
role. What does that week look like for you?
Okay, so hypothetically,
Yeah.
because
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, this is a whole different type of new schedule, that's for sure for me, because I've
Yeah.
only yeah.
Yeah. You've never existed in the full-time vocational ministry
Yeah,
environment, right? So
yeah.
yeah, I am asking you to stretch a little bit, but I
Okay.
think you can. I think
So
you're up for it.
hypothetically, my idea would be um, take the kids to school first, and then from that point, um, office hours. Again, I have no idea. It's like I personally love being in coffee shops when I'm working on curriculums or
Okay.
planning out. I prefer that environment.
Yeah.
But the office is a definite need because of printers and whatever type of other resources that might be in a building.
Sure.
So, um, but so ideally, that would be just utilize a lot of that time for planning, curriculum planning, and getting a hold of people. Definitely plan times to where I can meet people in person during that week time. Um, let's see, lots of prayer, lots of prayer during those times too.
Oh, I think we
Prep-
froze up.
song prep, it takes about 10, 15 hours during the week is song prep.
Okay.
And then of course the practice times during the midweek, and then Sunday mornings. And those are all the rehearsal times, especially, but then
Sure.
the execution of the actual production, or not production, but the service time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Um, and then what do you have Wednesday nights or Thursday nights
For
for
student ministry,
yeah.
so it's actually Sunday nights.
Oh, it is Sunday nights.
Yeah.
Everything's on Sunday.
Everything for students is on Sunday. Yes. We do
Okay.
Sunday morning, 2 services. We do Sunday nights in the evening for students, and then we have adult small groups through the week.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ideally it's just gonna be a lot of prep and planning and talking to people, and try to be into the community as much as I can during that time frame as well. Ideally, I want to have an hour during the middle of the day to work out, but that'll probably be a lunch break. And then pick up the kids whenever they get out of school, and I might do some more stuff at home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's good. Yeah,
Again,
I,
I really have
I
no
know
idea.
that's a big ask for you without having to, without having existed in that environment before. That's a big ask. So let
Yeah.
me maybe ask it this angle. Just in general, how do you keep yourself organized? How do you keep yourself on task? How do you make sure the stuff that needs to get done gets done on time, as well as working on projects that you have more time to fulfill, but are further down the road. So, kind of talk about organization, personal organization.
Um, Google Calendar is a huge thing, and be able to input all those things as much as I can. And then, of course, my wife always helps me to remind me when reluctantly, of course. So, um, but yeah, Google Calendar is the biggest thing. And I very much always try to, let's see, when I was working in full time in a kitchen and then doing ministry and doing school at that particular time frame, I made sure to have an idea of what kind of time frame I would have during the day, when I can get homework done, and when I can do the ministry prep, the song selections, and whatever else I needed to do during the day. So I would definitely assume that I would be something similar of writing down a actual schedule for myself, depending on the goals, because I would have goals set in place, be able to accomplish those goals during the week time or month time, and then ultimately the full year. Try to have a yearly planned, and be able to break it down during the months and the weeks and the days.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you work well? Are you how do I say this? Are you a planner where you're working things out over a long period of time, or are you kind of a last minute crunch guy? Which is more you?
I've practiced both things regularly, to where I plan in the long run and I try to always accomplish step by steps, but then those steps are procrastinated, and then I crunch it down to the goal time frame of that particular step. So it goes both ways.
Okay. So if I heard you right, I just want to make sure I understand. You have long-term planning that you do, you know, accomplish, breaking that down into individual steps, and then you kind of put a deadline on the steps. So step one needs to be done by, tonight at midnight. So you're working on completing step one at 11 o'clock, an hour before you kind of said it needs to be done. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Hey, I'm just looking for honest answers, man.
And
that's
you will get
that's it.
honesty.
Yep. Okay. Good. So let's talk a little bit about discipleship, mentorship. Have you had someone mentor you or disciple you in ministry or in just kind of personal life? Talk about that, and then can you talk about, have you personally discipled or mentored somebody yourself? And just kind of briefly give me the rundown of what that's looked like both directions.
Yeah. Growing up, like I said earlier, my youth minister was my mentor. He put in a lot of time into my life, and that really greatly affected me in a very wonderful way. From that point, when I graduated high school and going into college, um, I didn't have anybody mentor into me.
Okay.
Um, let's see, somebody claimed that he was going to be my mentor. Like he outright said that he wants to be my mentor. He wants to put time into my life, and that was like once a year.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's been about it. no one's really put in time into my life, unfortunately,
Okay.
since high school. So
Okay. Have you sought people out in order to ask them to mentor you, disciple you, or is it more
not
of you
not
approach
outright,
me and okay.
not outright in those particular words. It's going to be
Mhm.
like, hey, I need to, or let's have a talk. I have some questions, and then we email each other
Mhm.
for an extended period of time that lasted maybe 3 months.
Okay.
So when it came to personal, it's been a little rough of having someone to willingly put in the time.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Okay.
um, for me, the last time I put in the time or put in the effort to be specifically mentoring one person, um, well, multiple people really. It's been the music ministry recently here at Blenville, to where even though somebody else was the leader, it's like I definitely put in the time and effort to be with all those that are, or not all those, about half the people that were in the music team. I didn't have the time for everybody,
Sure.
but to have good relationships with those that I was able to put in the time and effort to be able to pray with them and talk with them, be able to just understand where the life was, and be able to pray and talk, be a listening ear mostly,
Okay.
and be able to put input where it needed to be. Um, and one regular person, or one person I do regularly on Thursdays. Him and I meet every Thursday, um, and we discuss life and our relationship with God, and our intentionality with our families. Um, let's see. So yeah, we do that every Thursday. We've been doing that since January. Um,
Okay.
those are the recent ones I can think of.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. So let's talk about this. Hypothetically, okay, you're in a full-time vocational ministry position. Uh, you are kind of functioning the way that you want to function in your youth ministry, and church leadership, so elders, senior pastor, comes and says, "Hey, we believe that we need to make a shift in kind of philosophically how we operate." So maybe that's towards small group driven. Maybe it's something else. I'm not going to be specific, but a significant change needs to happen. How do you receive that?
I mean, like, okay, let's try it out. If it's,
Okay.
I think that really depends on how it's being brought to me.
Okay.
If it's a, hey, um, let's try to build something or try something different. I'm always willing to try something new. Always.
Okay.
If they're coming at me, hey, you're not doing your job, let's try something different. Like, I thought I was doing my job, then that would be taking a little bit more on the personal side, but I would still be able to make sure to have good or I would try to have communication with them, to be able to understand what's going on in that sense. But it's like I'm always willing to try something new.
Okay. Okay. You feel like you receive ideas that are maybe not your own. You receive those well. You give them a fair shot. You have open communication about it. You're open to
Oh yeah,
kind of hear and listen and learn. Okay. You believe that that's true of you.
yes.
Okay. Good. Cool. Okay. Let's see here. Just looking through my list of questions that we don't have time for all of them. Let's maybe transition a little bit to kind of bigger picture doctrine, theology type stuff. Um, Answer this question for me again. Hypothetical situation. I'm a teenager in your student ministry. Say I've been coming to group for a while. Say that you gave a fantastic gospel message at group one night. I come up to you and I say, Cortney, I want to give my life to Jesus. What does that mean? What does that look like? Tell me within a nutshell. We don't have time to study it all out, but what does that look like for you to?
Still, to give your life to Christ is like having a committed relationship with Jesus, with God. To say, yes, I truly do believe that He is real. So that's the confession part of it, and be able to say, I promise to have a deepening relationship. So I accept Him as my Father. So it goes into the confession and the action of um, the proclamation to those who are needing to hear it. So the church in this case is, I'm making this promise in front of you. Please uphold this promise with me. Help me to grow in this case. So and definitely keep on what's the word? Keep on instilling the understanding that God is very much always there, and keep on growing that relationship with Him. That's where my definition would be into play. And I would definitely have good conversations about baptism, and that's where the upholding a promise with the congregation of this is a beautiful ceremony for us to be able to put into action your promise.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a lot more eloquent if we had more time.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I think that's good. So I sent you a copy of our, I think if I remember right, I sent you a copy of our full doctrinal stance. And I think I gave you the big one, right? That has the essentials and the non-essentials.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So it kind of went down into everything, including, eschatology and, position of the church and all of that stuff. Hi, I'm in a meeting. You need to go. Great, son, I am in a meeting. Sorry about that.
You're good.
So did you have a chance to kind of browse through that a little bit?
Yes, I did read it, and very much fully agree upon all those statements. I especially appreciated the careful wording when it came to heaven and hell, to where heaven is like you're in the presence of Him, and hell is separation from Him. So that was very, very good wording. I very much appreciated that.
Sure. I wish we could say that we wrote that all of ourselves. We like many people have stolen stuff from other places. So
as long as it works,
I'll ask for forgiveness some other time. Okay. So any other kind of observations? Do you see any areas that might be in conflict with maybe what you believe personally? Any values that may be in conflict there as well?
It's like when I read it, no red flags came about for me in particular. So it seemed like everything was very on par with my beliefs and the way I do things as well. So
okay. Yeah, and just to if you end up kind of looking back over that again, we have very few that we believe are essential, and so just to kind of explain the terminology, essential doctrines are the ones that we believe that we do have to agree on in order for us to essentially be in fellowship. We have to agree about who God is. We have to agree about the Bible. We have to agree about salvation and sin and the Holy Spirit. So those ones we have to agree on. We've taken a lot of the other things out that we can have different beliefs and yet still have fellowship with one another. One good example is end times views. In our church, we kind of have a broad demographic of church background of people. We have some charismatics, we have some Baptists, we have some Catholics, we have some hardcore Church of Christ people. We've got kind of a mixed bag, right? And with that comes a mixed bag of things like end times beliefs.
Right.
We have decided that's not an issue. We're going to separate them. And so that's the difference between essential and non-essential.
Yep.
If that makes sense. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Great. Cool. Yeah. So I think last question I'm going to ask you is, and then if you've got any questions for me, we can dive into those. Just want to hear from you. What do you know about us as a church? What do you know about kind of our philosophy, the direction that we're going, and what do you know about the position that we're trying to fill?
Well, what I know is what you talked about last time, and a little bit what Ryan talked about with me when I had a conversation with him through Slingshot.
Yeah.
To where your church has had its up and downs recently when it came to numbers, and the minister recently, or somewhat recently, left. Recent is relative.
Relative, sure.
To where you was the youth minister, and now you are the minister.
Yep.
Was the youth minister. Yeah.
Yep.
I said that right.
You got it right.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
What?
You got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Your numbers went down when your original minister left, and then went down again during COVID. But then you had not a transition, but a discipleship, where we talked about last time, has made a big impact for your church, and people are being affected by it really well, if I remember correctly, to where the discipleship is very relational based, and that's been a not I don't want to say foundation, but that's been a movement for your congregation that's been affecting them in a way that's helping them grow spiritually and in numbers.
Yeah.
I know your youth ministry is low right now, so be a little bit of a startup in that particular aspect. Your worship ministry is consisting of you and I believe a drummer, a bass, and a keyist.
Foundationally, yeah.
Foundationally. So it also seems like your congregation is serving. It seems like you're like no one is being hesitant. It seems like based on your descriptions between you and Ryan. You are in a city of 60,000, but you are one of the very few restoration churches.
Yep.
It's non-denominational, but we all call it restoration as if it's a denomination. It's weird.
Yep. That's absolutely right.
So that provides opportunity and some pushback from the community as well. You have a good opportunity every year because of Pioneer Days, so that's pretty cool. And you are surrounded by nothing but farms.
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. Okay.
That's good. What I know.
Okay. All right. It's great, man. Appreciate it. It's good. So what questions do you have? You got anything for me?
How cold does it get up there?
How cold's too cold?
For me, I don't care. My wife, however, she's tiny. She has no heat.
So we can in a matter of just a couple weeks have a temperature shift of, I think one time we shifted close to 70 degrees, I want to say, within just a few weeks. So our highs get during the summertime, we flirt with 100 during especially July and August. Usually doesn't last more than about 4 or 6 weeks. Right now we're sitting in the 80s pretty consistently. Our nights dropping right now we're dropping into the 50s at night. My opinion, it's comfortable. During the wintertime, you've got actual temperature and then you've got wind chill, and the wind is a reality out here. The wind will blow pretty much all winter, and so it'll turn a real temp of, say, 0 degrees into what feels like -30. So that lasts for probably a couple months. I don't know for sure. It lasts for a little bit of time. Now it's not. So when I say that, it's not consistently -30 for months at a time. We are, hello, sun. We dip down there when the wind really picks up or when a storm's coming through, but we will consistently have like a snowstorm come through. It'll get cold and it'll blow, and then the sun will come out the next day, and it'll warm up to where you're shoveling your sidewalks, with a long sleeve shirt on, because it's kind of warm. So it is a vast difference. It is a vast difference.
I grew up in North Missouri, and it sounds something similar, but not as extreme as the -30s. But yeah, fun stuff.
And the negatives, I will say, -30, maybe -40 1 or 2 times over the last few years. That's not consistent. That's, normally when a storm picks up and it's just blowing. We get probably 2 or 3 significant storms during the winter. I don't know for sure. So
I asked that question, and my wife is on the floor next to me. She's like, "Yeah, it's funny."
we got. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. We got, not this last winter, but the winter before, we got 36 inches of snow dumped on us within just a little over a day. And even for Cheyenne, Wyoming, which we are fully prepared for snow, it shut down our city for a good couple days. Schools were out all week. City workers, government buildings were shut down for at least 2 or 3 days. We couldn't even get to our church building for 3 or 4 days, and we had to dig ourselves out with tractors. So
that's awesome. Hey, to me, that's awesome. Anyways,
right.
One of the main questions I always that's always on my mind and my wife's mind as well is women in leadership. Like,
Sure.
how is your church's stance on the accepting of, or being accepting of, women in leadership?
Sure. Yeah. So we are what I believe is a fairly traditional restoration approach to this restoration movement approach. We have a pretty strong stance that eldership, church eldership, is reserved for men. We believe that is biblically backed. Now, with that said, whenever we do bring on elders, we do have kind of a conversation around, your wife is a significant part of the ministry that you are fulfilling in this role. So it's not you just being out on an island by yourself as an elder. You are a team together.
Yes.
And so there is conversation around that very point. If your wife is hesitant for you to be an elder, for instance, or resistant, that's a thing. We got to talk through. We got to deal with that. So there's that aspect. We have, I would say, several women who are high functioning ministry leaders within our church. And so they are leading ministries. They are leading at times men, volunteers within the ministries as a female kind of point person ministry leader. We equate ministry leader to deacon here. And so we don't call them deacons for a couple different reasons. One, deacon is kind of one of those words where, you know, for unchurched people, we don't really know what it means. And it has to kind of involve a whole conversation that we just don't feel like is worth it. Ministry leader is a lot more clear. You know, you can have an understanding of what that is pretty easily. The other side of it is, it's a fight that we're not willing to fight. There are some pretty conservative restoration kind of Church of Christ, especially background individuals that would push against female deacons, even though we believe there are female deacons biblically.
Yes.
So it's just not a fight that we're fighting. It's just not something that we're going to put any time into. So we call them ministry leaders. As far as leadership's concerned, they're deacons. Yeah, and they're high functioning, great leaders leading both men and women. In conversations about this job position, we have had the conversation, we would be open to hiring a female into this position if she was the right fit. And so really what it comes down to answer your question, is the only role that we do believe biblically is reserved for men is the position of elder, and senior leader would fit into that, largely because senior leader is an elder as well. So I am an elder of this church as well.
Yep.
So, make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think about the questions off the top of my head now. I know we talked about it last time, but I cannot remember of your all support for missions.
Yeah, we did just briefly. I'm happy to go over that again. I believe we have 4 specific missions that we support financially on an ongoing basis. We have an individual, a couple rather. They were elders. He was an elder at this church. She was heavily involved in children's ministry. They are leading and heavily involved in a Bible college, essentially in Africa, in Eswatini, Africa. They've been over there for quite a few years. I want to say 8 or 10 years. We are their sending church. So we've got Brett and Evelyn are their names. They have no plans to come back anytime soon. We support an orphanage organization down in Jamaica that we've been supporting them for a very long time, decades. And they run an orphanage organization. We support Rafa International, which I imagine you're familiar with, based out of Missouri there. We brought them on just recently, I want to say within the last 2 years. Rafa is a significant and important mission for me, just personally. And then number 4, we support a local pregnancy center, the kind of counterproductive or counter to Planned Parenthood, faith-based pregnancy center. So those are the ones that we support monthly on a regular basis. We have communication with. I was just on a video call with Brett in Africa last week. We have high communication with him, especially as their sending church. Outside of that, we will do kind of special support for specific things that come up. And so, for instance, Summit Christian College, which is our local-ish Christian college. It's the college I went to. It's over in Gering, Nebraska. We'll take up special collections for them for specific purposes throughout the year. We don't support them on an ongoing basis. And so we'll do things like that occasionally. There's a campus ministry that we're probably going to do something similar for here pretty soon, down in Colorado. So, but
Nice.
We've got the four main ones.
Nice. And yeah, that's all the questions I can think of, though.
Okay. All right. Well, since she's sitting there, does your wife have any conversations or have
Actually,
any questions?
she already left the room, though.
She already left. All right. Fair enough. Okay. All right, man. Well, that's looking good. It's 5:52 here, so I'm gonna have to run in just a couple minutes anyway. So, good conversation with you. I appreciate the time again, Courtney. Appreciate your honesty and answering questions. Same thing as last time. I'm gonna have the other guys look over the video, and we're gonna talk about you again. Like I said, should hear from me in about a week and a half. And I don't know if I said this to you or not, but at any point throughout this process, if you just feel like this is not a good fit for you, you don't think this is where God wants you to be, please just let me know.
Right.
Let's not, and I commit to do the same thing with you. I'm not in the business of dragging things on longer than they should. Let's just, be adults about this and
Yeah.
say what we need to say. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Sounds good. Well, if anything comes up or if you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to email me.
I will.
So we can certainly keep those lines of communication open. So,
Absolutely.
okay. All right. Well, we'll talk to you later then, Courtney.
Bye.
See ya.